Capcom.
This is the tournament for the new millennium. You'll experience the most exciting battle in history. Let's get ready to battle. Feel the intensity when power and technique collide. Crush the competition. A battle beyond your imagination. Let the martial arts madness begin. 2001 is the year we make contact. Welcome to the revolution.
I remember when the original Capcom vs. SNK came out, and I was shocked because no one could have seen that these two companies, Capcom and SNK, who were the bitterest of rivals in making fighting games, competing games against each other, would actually join forces and put all their characters into one game, and prove once and for all who was the best. Of course, they tried to carefully balance everything, so there was no clear-cut winner.
Live and let die.
A year later, some of the impact, isn't there. It doesn't have quite the shock value because some people have already played the first Capcom vs. SNK, but the second game in the series is quite a bit better than the first, although as with many of Capcom's fighting game sequels, it's sort of an incremental change. It's not dramatically different from the last one, but it adds a fair amount of new characters, some new modes of play, and some extra secrets and stuff like that. And certainly enough that a fan of the previous game would be more than interested in the new one. Capcom vs. SNK 2 is actually, it was released originally for the Dreamcast only in Japan, but since it came out on the PlayStation 2, a fairly important event happened, and it's that SNK closed its doors. So who knows, this might be, one of the last times when a lot of these characters appear in a game unless Capcom, claims rights to them and so forth. So it sort of feels significant for that reason. It's sort of the last chance to see popular SNK characters like Ryo and Kyo and Yori and all that gang. So fans, people who've ever enjoyed any of SNK's games would, might be interested to pick this up just for that reason, knowing that, there might not be another chance. The game adds new characters, including Haomaru, the sword-wielding samurai from Samurai Showdown. There's Eagle from Street Fighter 1, the British stick fighter. It's kind of funny to have him back, but he's actually one of the cooler additions. Some of them are pretty obscure. There's Kyosuke, a Capcom character from rival schools. There's Maki, who's from the sequel to Final Fight, which is a pretty obscure game, and she herself is sort of a rip-off of SNK's Mai Shiranui. So a lot of these characters, they're fairly obscure, and fans of either Capcom or SNK will likely appreciate that, while more casual fighting game players will say, they probably won't be able to tell the difference between these new characters and some of the older ones. All told, there are more than 40 characters in the game, which is quite a handful. And besides all that, unlike in the original Capcom vs. SNK, the sequel combines the original Capcom vs. SNK character with the EX version. There were two versions of most of the characters in the previous game with different special moves. So here, characters have a lot more options, a lot more moves, and so on. They're generally more interesting to play. Besides all that, the game has a total of 6 different grooves, which are like the different fighting systems. Choosing one of these determines whether you could, do a full-on run or a short hop or block in the air or use, one big powerful super move every once in a while or weaker ones more frequently. It determines a lot of different properties and how your character basically plays.
This battle is about to explode. Fight!
Visually, the game hasn't changed much, but when I say hasn't changed much, I mean in some characters, not since the mid-90s. So Capcom is sort of guilty of recycling a lot of its graphics and sound year after year, and this game is no exception. Some of the old characters like Sagat and Morrigan from Darkstalkers, they just, you know, they look really old and quite bad by now compared to some of the newer ones. So you get some discrepancy in graphical styles between the characters, and it's a little bit annoying, and you'll wish that, you know, all of them looked as good as some of them, but they don't. But that doesn't entirely matter because it's really all about the gameplay here, and it stays pretty true to the previous one. It controls well, special moves come out easily, you can perform all kinds of interesting combos, and the different grooves do create lots of different tactics. On the other hand, the backgrounds are all new in Capcom vs. SNK 2, and they look really nice, actually. They don't start with the really cool stage intros that were in the first game, but by and large they look better here. So new places to fight is always a plus. The game doesn't really deviate from, you know, the formula that Capcom has been using in its fighting games for quite some time. But on the other hand, it takes the approach of trying to combine all these different fighting systems and all these different fighting game characters all into one complete game. And it does a pretty good job of that. You know, certainly if you've been looking for a good 2D fighting game, especially on the PlayStation 2, which really doesn't have that many right now, it's really a great choice.
The year we made contact. Welcome to the revolution. Capcom vs. SNK 2. Mark of the Millennium 2001.